Today we are in another new neighborhood. We are over in Sweetwater, Florida, which is nearby Doral, Florida, so quite far west of where I live in Miami Beach. I'm out here this way to come to IKEA and check out some furniture, which is nearby. And I thought I'd stop in this neighborhood over here. And coincidentally, I parked by this house that's for sale that you can see right behind me here. This place has been for sale for 112 days, guys. $699,000. 4-bedroom, 4-bath, almost 3,000 square feet, and they have a $26K price cut. But get this, it's been almost 4 months on the market and they've dropped the price by 100 grand. Original listing price, $790,000. I'll put the details up on the screen like I always do. Now the crazy thing is, we see houses over by me in Miami Beach, like literally by the beach. You know, walking distance to the beach, or, you know, a short drive, short bike to the beach in Normandy Isle or whatever. Sometimes people say, oh, that house is too expensive, you know, it's like $1.5 million or whatever, which is quite a bit more than this house, but obviously the location is superior to this, and here you're just in this giant neighborhood of houses. So, you know, that's why people pay that much for those type of houses over there, because of the location, guys. You have a little more space as far as neighbors go. You guys can see all these houses have like no yard. You're totally crammed on top of each other here. Anyways, today I want to talk about reverse mortgages, because this is something that a lot of senior citizens could be considering in the near future, now that inflation is totally crazy and everything is getting super expensive. And reverse mortgages can be especially appealing to seniors that might not have saved as much money for retirement as they hoped, or had some sort of unexpected life event. And then when you get the prospect of a reverse mortgage to come up, especially when you're desperate for money, that can sound like a pretty good idea. I've had clients in the past ask me if they should do it, you know, and it depends, right? Everybody's situation is different. But before you decide to take a reverse mortgage, here are some facts that you need to be aware of. Now, the first thing is, the big difference between a reverse mortgage and something like, say, a HELOC loan is that there are no loan payments. So you take out this reverse mortgage loan, essentially, but you don't have to make any payments. And what happens is the balance of the loan keeps increasing as they pay you. So it's basically the same thing in reverse when you have a mortgage on a house. Instead of you paying the mortgage, now the bank is paying you. And obviously you can't do this type of thing unless you have a fully paid off home, or a home that has a ton of equity, like, you know, maybe 70 or 80% equity, something like that. So you need to have a lot of equity to even be able to pull this off to begin with. And basically how this works is it's structured where you either have to pay it back at death. So if you die and you know, you still have this reverse mortgage, then you pay it off then, your estate pays it off. Or if you move before you die, then it gets paid off then. And the one good thing about it is the balance of the loan can never go higher than what the property is worth. So let's say, you know, you take out one of these reverse mortgages right now when the market is hot and the value of your home is really high, and let's say they give you a $500,000 loan, you know, just throwing a number out there, but your home equity dips to 400K when it comes time to sell the property, or you die or whatever. They can't charge you that extra 100 grand because the value of the home went down. So that's the one good thing about it. But the thing is, guys, just like the rest of the mortgage industry, the reverse mortgage industry is completely collapsing right now. Mortgage demand in general is at its lowest it's ever been, and reverse mortgages is no exception. One thing you have to keep in mind if you decide to take one of these reverse mortgages is that the fees up front that they charge for these things are horrific. So to give you an example from this article I read today, they can charge up to 12 points plus a loan origination fee. So an example transaction, say you have a house worth $750,000. That's what they're going to give you for this reverse mortgage. You know, you're going to get payments of this amount, and they charge 12 points on this, right? And plus your mortgage origination fee, which gets paid to the mortgage broker or whoever gives you the loan to begin with. So on a deal like that, you could be looking at $90,000 chopped right off the top, guys. So almost 100 grand off your $750,000 loan to get into one of these reverse mortgages. Now that number will be smaller if your property is worth less, because basically the origination fee works like this. It's 2% of a house that's worth $200,000, and anything over $200,000, they charge 1% with a maximum of $6,000 for an origination fee, okay? But the interest rates, now that interest rates are higher, this also works against you as well, just like when you are the one buying the house. And the same is true when you get a reverse mortgage. If you get a reverse mortgage with an adjustable rate where the rate can go up, or you lock in one of these 5 or 6% rates, then that's just going to deplete your home equity even faster as these payments are being made to you. So that's another thing to keep in mind, because the higher your rate, then essentially the faster you're going to run out of money. So it can be tempting to take one of these reverse mortgages right now in times of inflation, in times of having your property worth more than basically ever before, but it comes at a cost. And the cost is going to be that higher interest rate and these exorbitant fees when you go to take one of these things out. So like I said in the beginning, the biggest difference between this or taking out like a HELOC loan, for example, is that there's no loan payment. So if you're doing well in retirement and you just need a little extra money, then you might want to look into a different type of loan that requires you to make a payment versus taking one of these reverse mortgages, because this is probably only going to be the best solution for people who are essentially broke and need to live off of their house, until they're dead. That's kind of like who this is designed for. And if that's not your situation, then you need to be very careful about taking one of these reverse mortgages. According to the National Association of Home Builders, housing affordability right now is at its lowest it's ever been, guys. This is insane. Check out this statistic that was reported today. Just 42%, basically 43% of new and existing homes sold in the US beginning from April to the end of June were considered affordable, meaning that the price range of those homes fell into the affordable category for people that are earning the median US income, which is household, not just individual. So median household income of $90,000. So, and that number is down from 56.9% sold in the first quarter of this year. So just in the second quarter of this year, housing affordability has dipped down to its lowest level ever. This is one of those things that I keep talking about, guys, of how this is unsustainable and how this is not going to be able to last forever. Because how is the economy and the housing market and everything going to continue to move on business as usual when affordability is dropping through the floor? Who's going to buy, guys? Mortgage demand's already extremely low. The amount of closed sales is dropping. These interest rates, for the most part, keep going up. So how is the housing market going to stay afloat during times like this, when households that are making 90 grand, sometimes 100 grand a year, can't even afford the median price US house? This is insanity, guys. There's no way that this can continue. It just can't. It's just like all these cities out west that are sipping from the same glass of water. Eventually, they're gonna run out. Check this out, guys. I ran into a peacock. One of the questions I get all the time about living down here in Florida is what kind of wildlife you're gonna run into. And let me tell you guys, the further west you go, like this, you're getting closer and closer to the Everglades, the more you're gonna run into critters, okay? There's dragonflies everywhere. There was ducks when I was coming in here. There's a peacock there. You're more likely to run into different types of snakes and lizards out here, and possibly even an alligator. So the closer you are to the natural habitat of these creatures is, going to increase your likelihood of running into things like this. So keep this in mind in case you're moving down here and you're worried about that sort of thing. But like I was saying a minute ago about the water supply out west, right? You have everybody essentially sipping from the same cup, and one day the cup is going to go dry. And to me, this trend in the housing market right now is exactly the same. There's only so many people out there that can afford the median price home with their median income, right? There's just only so many buyers out there. And now that people are waking up to the fact that now is probably not the best time to buy, and inventory is going through the roof in many cases. You know, there's becoming more and more homes for sale all across the country. People are like, what's the rush now? Let's wait it out. That's the smart thing to do, okay? Just wait a little bit, because things are changing so fast right now that this market can look entirely different 6 months or a year from now, and the amount of opportunities out there could be tremendous. And the reason why I brought up the water issue, guys, is because St. George, Utah, I was actually there last summer on my United States road trip. It's a beautiful area. It's extremely hot during the summertime, even hotter than Miami. And it's a desert basically, but it's beautiful. You have a lot of the red cliffs and, you know, lots of cool hiking spots and things like that. But this place is on the radar right now because it's literally like the fastest growing city on the western half of the United States. They have about 180,000 people over there right now, and that population is expected to double by 2050. Meanwhile, the entire western half of the country is in a major drought, and they're basically out of water already, and it's not even 2050, and more people keep moving into the area. So just like the housing market scenario we were talking about a minute ago, this is unsustainable. How are more and more people going to continue to move to an area that has no water? They're talking about, you know, building pipelines from the Colorado River or the Virgin River or some of these other rivers that are nearby. And that's it. They're going to suck up all the water, guys. And what happens when there's no more water? People are going to die, because you can live for weeks without food, but you can live only 3 days without water. So that's not going to last very long as soon as people are out of water, and people are paying all-time high prices in this area for real estate right now, and they have been since the start of the pandemic. Similarly to Miami, it was a really hot spot for people to move to during the pandemic. And are people going to be wanting to move there when there's no water left to drink? I don't think so. What do you think that's going to do to home values over there? So people are starting to think about this who live in the area now and are realizing, wait a minute, we need to do something about this before it's too late. Although really the only answer is to either reduce the amount of water or, you know, reduce the amount of people moving in, or really both. It's just interesting because the whole mindset and the whole pattern for everything in corporate America is growth, right? If you're not growing, then you're dying. That's how corporations look at their business, and small business owners look at things. Everybody judges how successful they are based on growth, right? But sometimes, guys, growth is not the answer. And right now is the perfect example of how growth is not the answer. If St. George keeps growing and doubling in size in the next 30 years like they're talking about, these guys are going to be busted. There's going to be no water, and people are going to be stuck with these $1 million homes that they paid for that are worth nothing because people have no water. I've always thought it would be a good idea to set up a pipeline from the eastern half of the country, you know, for water and pump it out west, but obviously there's probably no money in that, and that's why they don't do it. That's just my guess. I don't know for sure. But you know, they do it for oil, guys. They have oil pipelines that stretch thousands of miles. If they can do it for oil, why can't they do it for water? So I think this is yet another one of those problems that we have in this country that could easily be solved if it wasn't for politics and everything revolving around money, you know? Obviously, this is not a money issue. This is a basic human needs issue. If people are going to live in an area, they need to have water. So who's going to provide that water, and where's it going to come from? That's really like the main concern. And right now they're just doing basic petty things over there, like putting in ordinances about like putting in grass and basically charging people more for if they use a lot of water, things like this. But honestly, guys, those are small things that probably aren't going to make up a massive difference in the long run, because at the end of the day, the numbers just don't work. If you got more people moving in, it's more mouths that need water, okay? It's that simple. So I don't know what they're going to do over there. It's going to be interesting to see how this situation plays out over the years. And I know this is not just a problem exclusive to the US. There's a lot of other countries that have this problem as well. See all the dragonflies? I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's a ton of them, guys. They're everywhere. Right now, the Fed is warning everybody that there is trouble ahead, guys, because even though these rate hikes have been consistently happening throughout the year, the economy is still on the surface looking strong, and there's still a lot of businesses taking out loans, and unemployment is still relatively low. Well, guess what? This is not what the Fed wants, okay? And there was a report that came out today basically saying that they're gonna fight this at all costs, guys. They don't care if you lose your job, because unemployment will need to go up, and they don't even know by how much, because they don't even have a set number for this. So they're basically saying unemployment's going to go up, and we don't know by how much, we don't know what's going to be the threshold, and we're willing to take the economy through a mild recession in order to make all this happen. Now, obviously that's a joke. We're already in a recession, and if you think it's mild right now, it's probably just going to continue to get worse, because all of these problems that we have are going to have to get worse before they can get better. It's just the way it's going to have to go. For housing prices to come down, a lot of people are going to have to sell at a loss and list their homes for sale, and there's going to be foreclosures and things like that. In order for inflation to go down, a lot of businesses are going to have to close, or, you know, trim up the fat and lay people off. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to have to happen for things to return to any sort of equilibrium. So it's not like I personally want things to get bad. It's just that this is the only way that things are going to change for the better eventually, because it can't keep going like this. Things are already bad in the sense that people can't afford food and gas and housing, the basic human needs that we all need right now, without, you know, going into debt essentially. And this is a major problem, guys. So, and the funny thing is, investors think that as soon as the Fed sees a recession coming, that they're going to pivot and start lowering rates again. The Minneapolis Fed president, Neel Kashkari, he said last week that I'm focused on the inflation data. And he said we're going to keep raising rates until inflation is squelched. That's a quote, guys. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to this great economy, so to speak. If things stay great, then the Fed's just going to keep tightening things up even more until it's not so great, because that's their number one goal. This is their only goal right now that they have. And this is another thing that it said. The easing of financial conditions itself is a concern. If companies, banks, and households don't respond as expected to the higher rates the Fed has already flagged, they may continue borrowing, lending, and spending at levels that keep inflation elevated and require the Fed to use even harsher medicine. So it's just funny, guys, because we're all seeing the stock market go back up a little bit. We saw interest rates dip down a little bit for like a week there for mortgage, and you see gas prices going down a little bit and think, oh, it's over. This was nothing, guys. It's a blip on the radar. No, it's just getting started. They're telling you that if things remain like this, then they're just going to have to get even more aggressive. It doesn't matter what you want at this point, because all that really matters is what they're actually going to do to make it all change. So this is what we have to pay attention to, of just how aggressive the Fed is going to get in the coming months to try and curb this inflation, guys. So if you have a regular job right now, you should be saving as much money as possible, already anticipating a potential layoff, because you don't know who's going to be next, right? Nobody knows. You know, the tech sector is getting hammered hard right now. You know, the banking industry is getting hit hard right now, especially with mortgages. So who's next? We'll see, right? But the important thing is to be aware of what's happening out there and just be as prepared as you can, because if you have 6 months in savings, like a lot of people should, then you should be all right, and you should be able to weather the storm until you can find a new job or start your own business or do whatever you're going to do next. But people that are living paycheck to paycheck, and as soon as they get laid off, they're going to be the ones in financial trouble, and that's where the foreclosures and the evictions and everything start piling up. Now, another thing I wanted to touch on in this video is this new Inflation Reduction Act. It's something I haven't talked about yet, and the big star of this Inflation Reduction Act is the tax credit for electric vehicles. And first of all, guys, this is not really a good deal for anybody, okay? only if you're going to be buying a somewhat expensive electric car. Basically, it has to be a car under $55,000 or an SUV or a truck under $80,000, and it has to be manufactured in the US. So it eliminates a lot of the most common types of electric vehicles people buy. So most of the Teslas out there they sell don't even qualify for this, first of all. And if you want to buy like a Mercedes or Porsche, GMC Hummer, or any of the foreign electric vehicles, that's out. You're not going to get the tax credit because those aren't made in the USA, and the ones that are too expensive, so you're not going to get that tax credit. There's all sorts of things wrong with this, guys, and here's a couple of things I have to say about it. First of all, how does it make any sense to help reduce inflation by giving people these tax credits to buy these cars? Because anytime you increase demand for something, which you are increasing the demand for the mid-range electric vehicles produced in the US, that makes inflation go higher, right? And throwing money at something that we're trying to tighten the money supply on, so passing a bill that spends a lot of money like this, is going directly against curbing inflation. It's creating more inflation. So that's the first major issue with this, okay? And this is not my opinion, guys. This is just the way economics work. If they want inflation to go down, they need to tighten the money supply, not inject more money into the economy, right? This is how we got here, remember? Let's not go farther than 2 years back with the $6 trillion in printed money, and we're already in a recession. So that's how crazy this is, that even $6 trillion printed was only enough to keep us out of a recession for less than 2 years. So obviously throwing money at the economy like this doesn't work because the fundamentals are broken. Since they did pass this bill, why is there no tax credit for people that don't even buy a car, okay? Because, you know, to buy a car, it costs all kinds of havoc on the environment to produce that car, first of all, right? And there's no tax credit for people that take the bus to work every day or live in big cities where you don't need to have a car. Where's the tax credit for those people? Because they're the ones doing the most to actually, you know, save the planet, so to speak, if that's what this is about, which probably it isn't. So there's that. And the biggest elephant in the room, if you ask me, this is something I've always had an issue with electric cars, because I'm all for innovation, guys, but I'm totally against being pushed into something before it's ready, so to speak. And electric cars is the perfect example of that, because think about this. There's no acknowledgement of where the electricity comes from to power these electric cars. So there's two main issues. One, where does the electricity come from? Well, I'll tell you where it comes from, because I looked this up before the shooting of this video, because I wanted to give you guys the most accurate information. So get this, guys. Natural gas is the #1 source of where our electricity comes from in the US. 38%, almost 40% of the electricity produced in the US comes from natural gas, okay? The second largest energy source, guess where that comes from? Even worse than that, coal, okay? 22% of the electricity produced in the US comes from coal. So now we're talking 62% of the electricity produced in the United States right now in 2022 comes from these two environmentally damaging sources, right? And that's the whole reason to have an electric car, as far as I'm concerned. Like, that's why they started pushing this thing, is because it's better for the environment, right? So let's think about this for a minute. This is better for the environment, right? Yet if people buy electric cars and there's more demand for electricity, right? It's going to make electricity more expensive, first of all, making inflation worse, not better. And where are they going to get this electricity from? Well, a lot of it's going to come from that coal and natural gas, because that's where the majority of it comes from right now. Right now, guys, only 20% of the electricity produced in the US is from a renewable source, like a green energy source, like solar or wind energy, something like that, right? That is renewable and doesn't tax the environment. So 20% is nothing. That's still a long ways to go away from 100% or even more than half, because right now 62% comes from fossil fuels and coal. So that's one of the biggest issues right now with driving one of these electric cars. Not to mention, I think about this road trip I went on last year, and my Jeep will get about 600 miles on 1 tank of gas. And right now, as far as I know, there's no electric cars that get anywhere near that. And if you have to stop and fill up your car with electricity, there's not that much of an infrastructure out there for this yet, all across the country. making it easy for people to just stop and do this, first of all. And second, it takes way longer to stop and juice your car up with electricity than it does with gas. I'm not against saving the environment, guys. I love the world and our planet. I realize we only have one. I am definitely in the camp that, you know, we need to maintain our planet. That's for sure. But the way that they're trying to do this is once again wrong. Another perfect example of how the government gets involved in something and makes it worse, not better. And they haven't thought this through at all. Like, I wouldn't mind driving an electric car if it covered all the bases, right? If I could get my electricity from 100% renewable resources, okay, and I had a place to charge it at home, which I don't because I live in a condo, where am I going to charge this thing? Oh, I have to go out to the nearest Tesla charging station 10 miles away and, you know, wait half an hour for a quick charge, or even longer than that if I want a full tank? No, this is crazy, okay? We are not ready for this yet. So they're pushing this electric car initiative prematurely, and people aren't ready for it. And let's not even talk about the price. You know, the price of these things are still exorbitantly high, and that's how they're trying to incentivize people to buy these things, through these tax credits. So don't fall for this, guys. If you are somebody out there considering getting one of these electric vehicles because they're offering this tax credit, you better think twice. There's a lot of other things you can do to get a tax credit. You can buy real estate and become a landlord. You can contribute more money to your 401k, pre-tax dollars, things like that. There's a lot of things you can do in order to get that tax break versus buying one of these electric cars. So this is how the government ends up screwing everything up, because they create these programs and make it everything look like, oh my God, we should definitely go for this. Well, no, you shouldn't, guys. You need to think for yourself and realize the long-term implications of this and how it's not going to make things better. It's just going to make things worse, or at best stay the same. So until they got all these things figured out, I'm not going to be buying an electric car, that's for sure. So I just think it's more important than ever right now to use critical thinking and analyze all these things that are happening out there with the economy, with this Inflation Reduction Act, with the housing market, because nobody has a crystal ball, but we all have this, okay? We can all think for ourselves and try to make the best decision. And right now, making the best decision is being ready to take advantage of opportunity, in my opinion. And that's what I'm doing. I'm getting ready to take advantage of opportunity. I think the deals are coming in the housing market. I'm not going to buy an electric car and waste a ton of money on that just to get this stupid tax credit. So let me know what you guys are going to do. If you enjoyed this video or found it entertaining, please subscribe to the channel and check out my next video on the screen right over here, and I'll catch you over in the next one.